الدين ثم أصلي وأسلم على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا حبيبنا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Dear respected ulama al-kiram, beloved elders, brothers and sisters in Islam, we welcome you to yet another exciting edition of our program. We are running a series of theory of marriage, but we run it in episodes. We are trying now to look at the topical discussion of the intermarital roles, and we have had the last two discussions having the introductory part of it. Doctor has given us the issues which we need to focus on. For example, in the last discussion, he showed us the pertinent contemporary questions that need to be answered. I remember very well he said that gone are the days when we could restrict women in homes, and these days we are now having a new challenge, and that is now the challenge of women working. Now, how do we come up and reconcile such challenges when we have restricted ourselves within the Islamic teachings? Those are the days when we could see the fathers being the sole breadwinners. Now fathers are no longer the sole breadwinners. How do we address ourselves on such contemporary issues, restricting ourselves within the Islamic norms? And also, key challenges are emerging, especially these elders of ours who are sitting in kind of reconciliations between married couples. Couples are bringing in issues which are not new to Islam, but they are new in the perspective of us who have not engaged with them. But we need now to appreciate whose role is which, such that at the reconciliation of these roles, if each of us takes his obligations right, you never know, things may never be the same again. And we pray to Allah Jalla Jalaluhu to enable us understand this, and that's the role of scholars like Dr. Abdul-Hafiz Walusimbi, coming out to help us find a nexus between what is written in the scriptures, what is actually happening, and how do we reconcile the two. Tonight, we want to look at the obligations of the marital partners. It's the choice of Dr. Hafiz whether we shall begin with the husband or the wife. I think now the issue of husband and husband marriage does not exist in this discussion, and I must sound that very clear, because the marriage we are talking about is husband and wife. But before Doctor comes in, I would like to persuade him to come and appreciate the key issues which are now surrounding our homes. Sometimes our sisters have learned the deen more than us, or we have learned more than them. And you find that you can't tell a sister, you can tell a wife something, and then she tells you that you are telling it to me, but I'll be answerable to Allah. Sometimes you can tell her not to do or to do something, and then she says, no, I will not do it, because I'm answerable to Allah, I'm not answerable to you. These kind of aspects of who rules who, how is he who rules who should utilize his authority are pertinent issues, Doctor, we need to look at. By appreciating our obligations, and also to those whom we have the obligations to, appreciating us, I know, inshallah, Doctor, we shall have solved part of the problems in homesteads in this country. Allow me to welcome Dr. Abdul-Hafiz Walusimbi, who is the Director of Sharia at the Office of the Supreme Mufti. He's also a lecturer in the Department of Sharia, and also the Head of Department of Sharia at the Islamic University in Uganda at the Faculty of Arabic Language, Islamic Studies and Arabic Language. He's also a scholar in vast issues, including human rights. He is also one of the consultants we are having on issues of Sharia, especially in this country of Uganda. He has researched vastly in issues relating to Sharia, and we pray to Allah that He accepts his work and He makes his work part of the reasons He will use for the defense when he's in his qabr. I always tell him that he's helping himself to spare some time to share with us his knowledge. Dr. Abdul-Hafiz Walusimbi, welcome to the program, and please help us understand this kind of concept. Thank you very much.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى اللهم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Respected brothers and sisters in Islam, I salute you with the best salutation. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the many blessings that He has bestowed upon us. Above all these blessings is the blessing of Islam. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to preserve for us that blessing, and may He make us among those who shall die with the testimony of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Brothers and sisters in Islam, we want to carry this topic from where we stopped last time by looking at the intermarital roles. I want to reiterate and remind my fellow Muslim brothers and sisters that this is the most significant area in marriage. When we do well here, inshallah, our marriage institutions are going to be at their best. And if we fail to do well here, of course, we are towards destruction, and we are towards loss. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enable us understand these roles, but also to put them into practice. Allahumma ameen. What is the challenge? The challenge or the problem when we are addressing these intermarital roles is that today everything is mixed up. You find in a particular homestead, the wife is the one who is carrying out the responsibilities that would have been for the husband. And the reverse is also true. In our previous episodes, I made it clear that Islam gave us these guidelines so that we can find out how do we fare, how do we help ourselves in order to rearrange our marital duties. Today, inshallah ta'ala, we want to start with the obligations of the husband. Why are we starting with the obligations of the husband? This is because the husband is the head of the family. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the husband this responsibility. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon the husband this honor to be the head of the family, to be the champion of progress, to always lead from in front. That is the husband. And as a head of a family, I want to start by saying that you should enjoy fulfilling these obligations. And these obligations, to a great extent, they are categorized into two. The first, these are the financial obligations. And then the second, we have the non-financial obligations. We want to start with the financial ones. And one of them, which we had earlier discussed, it is the payment of the dowry. Since we have already discussed this, it is my humble appeal to all the husbands. It is my humble reminder that any husband who is having pending dowry to the wife should utilize this opportunity to offset that debt. First financial obligation that the Sharia has put on your shoulders as a husband is to ensure that you pay the dowry of the wife. Sometimes we take this for granted, but I have seen several situations whereby the major issue that is leading to the destruction of the family, that is leading to conflict and disagreement, is because the husband had spent many years, 10 years, 20 years, and he had never thought about fulfilling his obligation of paying the dowry of the wife. So I want to take this opportunity to call upon all those husbands to check themselves, to make sure that you pay off this burden, you offset this obligation, so that your wife can sit in such a comfortable situation by knowing that you fulfilled this obligation. However, I don't want also to forget that there might be situations whereby you might have promised something so huge. You promised, for instance, to take this wife for Hajj. You promised, for instance, that you are going to buy for her a fully furnished house. By the time you made this promise, Alhamdulillah, you had a lot of hope because the environment, the situation was favorable. But as we talk now, things are not as you expected. In such a situation, you just need to humble yourself. You just need to swallow your pride and then go to this wife and ask for a concession. If you had promised something so huge and circumstances now are not permitting for you to fulfill, please go and humble yourself and request your wife so that she can give you a concession. You can as well ask for a waiver. You can as well ask her to write off this obligation so that you are a free person and you start a new chapter whereby you are not indebted, you are not liable to anyone. Since we had already discussed about the details of dowry, I feel that that is enough reminder for all husbands out there to fulfill this financial obligation. The second one, which is actually the most fundamental, is provision and maintenance. It is our obligation as husbands to make sure that we provide for our families. There is a lot of goodness. There is a lot of favors when we fulfill this obligation. That's why I remember very vividly that I told husbands that when you are executing this duty, please don't take it like a burden. Enjoy what you are doing. You should do it with a smile. You should do it with a lot of compassion. You should do it with a sincere intention to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first and also to please your family. So our second primary objective after payment of the dowry is to ensure that we provide and maintain for our families. Someone out there could ask, what is the authority from the Quran and the Sunnah that obliges us as husbands to fulfill this duty? There are a number of them. But I want to start with the most historical. You all know the story of the creation of the first man, Adam alayhi salatu wassalam. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created him, within his wisdom, the Almighty, he decided that Adam should stay in the paradise, the Jannah. Also within his majesty, his wisdom, Allah realized that Adam cannot live a solitary life. he cannot live a lonely life, and he decided to create for him a soulmate, to create for him a companion, and that is Hawa or Eve alayha salatu wassalam. These two were accorded the abode in Jannah. They were accorded the shelter and the residence in Jannah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them an open check, because Allah told them, Inna laka fiha alla taju'a wa la ta'ara. You are free to enjoy all the blessings, all the favors in this Jannah, and you are not going to have any life of toiling, any life of struggling. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the permission to enjoy all sorts of the favors that are found in Jannah. But at the same time, he warned him, he cautioned him not to follow Satan, not to follow the temptations of shaitan. He told him, فَقُلْنَا يَا آدَمُ إِنَّ هَذَا عَدُوٌّ لَكَ وَلِزَوْجِكَ. That is Surah Taha. Allah told Adam alayhi salatu wassalam that this is your enemy, and this is an enemy of your wife. Therefore, be aware, take caution, take care. فَلَا يُخْرِجَنَّكُمَا مِنَ الْجَنَّةِ فَتَشْقَى. Don't follow him, because when you follow him, he shall be the reason to facilitate your exit from this Jannah. And when you are exited from Jannah, and this is what I wanted, Allah said, فَلَا يُخْرِجَنَّكُمَا مِنَ الْجَنَّةِ. Shaitan should not lead you out of the Jannah. And what will happen outside the Jannah? فَتَشْقَى. You, Adam, alone, you shall have to toil, you shall have to struggle. The Mufassirun, while looking at this verse, they concluded that the husband's responsibility to provide and maintain for his family, it is historical. From the time when Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala created us, He made it clear that it is our exclusive obligation to provide for the family. That is why Allah said, when Satan misleads you and your wife, and he sends you to the earth, fatashqa, it shall be you alone as the husband who is going to suffer, who is going to struggle, who is going to toil and sweat, so that you can provide for the family. Respected brothers and sisters in Islam, shouldn't we take pride in that? That since our creation, since the creation of the first man, Alhamdulillah, Allah in His wisdom decided that we should be the primary breadwinners. That is a great honor that we should take on with passion, that we should take on with a lot of love, that we should enjoy. Brothers and sisters in Islam, that is the first provision of Quran that indicates that provision, maintenance is a primary responsibility that falls on the shoulder of a husband. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enable us to fulfill this obligation. Brothers and sisters in Islam, when we also go to Surah An-Nisa, that is chapter 4, verse 34, the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, in that verse, which we as the husbands, we as men, we love to recite it often and regularly, not knowing that it is actually putting a responsibility to us. Allah said, الرجال قوامون على النساء. Men are the protectors, men are the guardians, men are the maintainers of women. This is yet another authority that is bestowing upon us that honor. It is so unfortunate that some men use this verse in the areas of showing superiority, in the areas of loving or wanting to try and undermine and despise a woman, which is not correct at all. This verse, it is indicating that it is our sole responsibility as husbands to provide and protect for our wives. When you want to understand the true meaning of qawwama, what makes you a man? What makes you the husband? Allah has mentioned it in this very verse. He says, بِمَا فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ بَعْضُكُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ وَبِمَا أَنفَقُوا مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ. What makes you a man? What makes you a guardian? The leader of your family is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has preferred you with certain privileges, and because out of those privileges, وَبِمَا أَنفَقُوا مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ, you can provide for your family. It goes without saying that if you cannot provide for your family, especially in the situation that you do not have justifiable reasons for that, I'm sorry to say, you do not qualify to be a husband. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you the means, but you are adamantly ignoring this responsibility, I'm so sorry to say that you are out of those who are supposed to be addressed as husbands, especially if you do not have a genuine reason. Not only that, go to Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, verse 233, whereby Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasizes the same responsibility. Allah says, وَعَلَى الْمَوْلُودِ لَهُ رِزْقُهُنَّ وَكِسْوَتُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Those men who have gotten children from their wives, it is their obligation to provide for the children, to provide for the wives, and also to offer for them the clothing bil-ma'ruf, according to the fitting situation, according to the appropriate and reasonable situation. And inshallah, we are going to look at the details of fulfilling this obligation. I am convinced that with those authorities from the Quran, we are now satisfied as husbands that this is our primary responsibility that we should do with a lot of love, with a lot of sincerity, hoping from Allah to reward us for that. From the Sunnah, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, according to the hadith that is narrated by Jabir radiyallahu anhu, and can you imagine, brother and sister, this hadith is among the ahadith that were mentioned by the Prophet in the final pilgrimage, in Hajjatul Wida. Jabir narrates that the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ فِي النِّسَاءِ. Subhanallah. I would draw your attention to listen carefully to this hadith. Allah said, the Prophet says, moreover in Hajjatul Wida, he's leaving for us the final message. He says, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ فِي النِّسَاءِ. Fear Allah in matters concerning women. I wish we could think about that statement. That as the Prophet is bidding farewell to this worldly life, among the issues he felt that they are so important for us to adhere to, for us to understand, he says, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ فِي النِّسَاءِ. Fear Allah, be conscious of Allah in matters concerning women. As if the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam knew that some men out there, they are going to oppress women, as if the Prophet knew that some men out there are going to cheat the women, are going to act in such an unjust manner with the women. That's why the Prophet emphasizes, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ فِي النِّسَاءِ. Fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in matters concerning women. He goes on to say, فَإِنَّكُمْ, you men, أَخَذْتُمُوهُنَّ بِأَمَانِ اللَّهِ. The Prophet said, verily you have taken them on the security of Allah. You have taken them on the security of Allah. Those of you who have been following our episodes, please refer to the episode concerning the nikah session, where we emphasize that the most preferred place is in the mosque, so that the number one and the greater witness is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is what the Prophet is amplifying. He says that you took them by the security of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَاسْتَحْلَلْتُمْ فُرُوجَهُنَّ بِكَلِمَةِ اللَّهِ. And you had intercourse with them, sexual intercourse with them has been made lawful unto you by words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So those of you who are accessing sexual intercourse with women without the nikah, you do not have the mandate of the Almighty Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. And those of you who are enjoying the sexual intercourse with women and you are married, you should be happy and celebrate that you are doing this with the mandate of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is where I wanted from the hadith. The Prophet said that you have rights, they have rights upon you. Then he says, وَلَهُنَّ عَلَيْكُمْ رِزْقُهُنَّ وَكِسْوَتُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. We shall talk about our rights over women, but we are now emphasizing our obligations in the family. The Prophet says, your obligation upon your wives is that you should provide them with food and clothing, but in a fitting manner. That is an authority from the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Having said that, this now takes me to the Islamic guidelines of implementing or fulfilling this responsibility. You remember in our previous episodes, we emphasized that much as these are legal obligations, but the moral element in them is much emphasized. Allah has made it clear that it is our obligation to provide for our families. But also, Islam has given us the guidelines to fulfilling them. Number one is, Allah made it clear that while fulfilling them, we should do that bil ma'ruf. We are supposed to fulfill this obligation bil ma'ruf. And the scholars of Islam have had different interpretation of what ma'ruf means. Some of them have interpreted it as a fitting manner, an appropriate manner. Others have interpreted it as in a reasonable manner. Others have interpreted it as according to the custom, the tradition, and the culture within which this couple is living. All those are interpretations of our good scholars. But what do we pick out of that? Out of that small statement of bil ma'ruf. Number one, we should provide for our families in accordance to custom, in accordance to culture, in accordance to the social economic status. That is why one of the fundamental principles of Islam that is laid down in Quran, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah does not charge a soul, does not charge a human being with anything that is beyond its capacity. So when you get married or when you marry someone, you are supposed to provide for that family within your means. You shouldn't go to an extreme in such a way that you cannot actually fulfill because it is beyond your capacity. Please fulfill this obligation within your human possibility and your human capacity. That is the first thing we understand out of the reasonability, out of the fitting manner. Number two, please get to know that this provision can change according to situations. I have ever been in one of the episodes and reminded our brothers and sisters that among the Arabic statements or proverbs, they say that min al-muhali dawamil hal. It is impossible that you maintain the same situation throughout. Today I might be rich within the circumstances when I married you, but tomorrow situations change. When the situations change, provision also has to adjust in accordance to the change of the situations. When the financial status improves, by the time I married you, I couldn't afford a modest means of transport. Now that I have, I shouldn't be seen as Abdul-Hafiz 10 or 20 years back. If this financial status improves, then my family should be the first one to appreciate it. Likewise, if the financial situation or status deteriorates, my family should be the first one to appreciate this change and also to be patient. Here is a challenge. Some of our wives, when the situations change for worse, they happen not to exercise any kind of patience, any kind of perseverance. But once you do that, then you are actually not a good wife. A good wife is the one who appreciates the situation and then adjusts accordingly. That is also something that we learn out of what Allah said, bil ma'ruf. The third is, bil ma'ruf generally caters for the basic needs. The basic needs. Our wives out there should understand that our obligation is to provide for the basics, the necessities of life. So when you get something that is above that, please be appreciative to your husband. That is a bonus. What are the basics? The feeding, the shelter, the medication, the clothing, and education where it is necessary. So, you could actually see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made this obligation, but at the same time, He is also trying to be, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, while describing this, He's also ensuring that we do what is basic. And what is basic, as I have said, the feeding, the shelter, among others. Here is something that is very interesting when it comes to talking about provision. In Surah Al-Talaq, that is chapter 65, verse 7, Allah gives us a general picture about provision. And when I read this verse, I am so happy to report that there is no any husband that should fail to provide for the family. What does Allah say? Allah says, لِيُنْفِقَ ذُو سَعَةٍ مِنْ سَعَتِهِ. That is one of the beautiful verses about provision. Having talked about the basics, Allah now is coming closer to us, to our human changing situations, and He says, okay, لِيُنْفِقُ ذُو سَعَةٍ مِنْ سَعَتِهِ. Each one of you as husbands, please give, provide what is within your means. The scholars of Islam, while internalizing this verse, they say that it is actually not an obligation to provide money, to provide food, to provide clothing, because Allah opened it. لِيُنْفِقُ ذُو سَعَةٍ مِنْ سَعَتِهِ. So, it is open. What can you provide? For sure, how can you convince me that you have faith to get what you can provide? The problem is that we are so materialistic. We think that if you don't have money, you don't have something to provide. No, it can't be like that. If you don't have money, be a good entertainer at home, so that by the time you come back, there is a lot of happiness. The house is on fire. This is what you can afford. If you have some kind of comedies, be a good comedian at your home. This is what you can provide. This is what you can provide. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لِيُنْفِقُ ذُو سَعَةٍ مِنْ سَعَتِهِ. Please try to carry out your personal self-evaluation and assessment and find out what can you give. If you don't have money, You mean you cannot even afford to carry your wife, to carry your children? If you do not have the money, you mean that you cannot draw closer so that at least you give her the emotional comfort? I have been told with reliability that really it is not about the material provision. I always emphasize, when you bring to me food with a gloomy face, it doesn't matter how good, how delicious that food is, I will not take it in the best way. But there are those situations whereby actually food is not so good, but the face you wear, when you are presenting it, it actually makes me even have a double appetite to take it. All this can be understood under one verse, لِيُنْفِقْ ذُو سَعَةٍ مِنْ سَعَتِهِ. I can assure you that in matters of provision, you cannot fail to provide. You can provide a lot. The Baganda have a saying that omuko mwavu ayasanku, meaning that the, how do you call muko? An in-law. A poor an in-law. He gets involved into the splitting of firewood. Okay? What does that mean? It means that you can't fail to have a duty, you can't fail to have a responsibility, you can't fail to have a role to play. Fellow husbands, let us wake up. If you have gone out to work and really the day has not been as fruitful as expected, go back with a big smile at home. Go back with a lot of hope at home. This is what you can provide. لِيُنْفِقْ ذُو سَعَةٍ مِنْ سَعَتِهِ. Let us provide in accordance with what is within our means. Some time back, I was presenting about the zakah model. And this morning I remembered that we can borrow some of the concepts of zakah in provision. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لِيُنْفِقْ ذُو سَعَةٍ مِنْ سَعَتِهِ, it means that our levels of maintenance, our levels of provision cannot be the same. Our levels of provisions cannot be the same. When I was presenting about zakah and its benefits, or its benefits, I said that zakah was actually legislated to address three needs of the following levels. Number one, we are supposed to give zakah for survival. Some people actually need zakah to survive. What do we mean by this? They just need basic needs so that they can pass through life. They are just counting until when the sun sets. Those people need zakah purely to survive. Then the second level, we give zakah to some people to be self-reliant, in that they are okay. They are respected in the community. Their level is no longer the level of looking for basic necessities, but just to be okay within the society. Then the third is sustainability. There are those people who actually need zakah so that they can open up a small-scale project so that life can be sustainable. This morning, I thought about the qiyas, the analogy, the comparison between that model and the provision model in our families. Find out your level. If the means or if the financial status is not so good, your provision is just for survival. So look for any means so that you can provide for your wife, you can provide for your family, to save them from the shame of begging and dependence. SubhanAllah, there are some families outside there whereby really the husband has the means, but because he does not want to provide, that family had been forced to beg. The family has been forced to depend on others. So, the first level of provision is to provide for your family just for survival, so that your wife is not seen in the line of those who are lining up in the mosque just to get 1 kilogram of rice, 1 kilogram of flour, or anything of that sort, your provision might be at that level. Because if you don't do that, and you actually force the woman or the wife to that level of depending on begging, depending on borrowing and so on, you are likely to land this lady or to set her in the trap of some of people who can exploit her situation. So, some people might be at that level. You are only required to provide for your family to survive. Have they taken the basic meals, the breakfast, the lunch, and the supper? Alhamdulillah. Do they have a decent accommodation? Alhamdulillah. Do they have decent clothing? Alhamdulillah. That is just for survival. And that is the first level. The second level, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has raised you in status financially, please don't always stay at the survival level. Go to the self-reliance level. What do I mean from that? What does it cost you to create an income for your wife so that she does not have every time to call you because there is no lunch? Why don't you create a small project and give it to her so that she can have her survival, her basic needs drawn out of the proceeds of that project? That is an advanced level. And by the way, it is more comfortable. But in a situation whereby whenever you are not at home, there is a provisional crisis, that is not acceptable, especially if you have the capacity to create a situation of self-reliance. That is now the second level. The third level is sustainability. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has improved your financial status, let it be seen. You remember the statement of Umar bin al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu when he said that Inna Allah yuridu an yara athara ni'matihi ala abdihi. Allah loves to see the effects of the blessing of Allah on him. When Allah has raised your status financially, why don't you make your home or you provide for it in a sustainable manner? What do I mean here? Give her, even if it needs to have some kind of surplus, so that she can take pride in the family, so that she can make contributions to some minor or modest needs, so that in case she has a sister at home, she can afford to buy her something, so that she can make some family contributions. That is another level. But if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided you above that, the principle is لِيُنْفِقُ ذُو سَعَةٍ مِنْ سَعَتِهِ. Give what is within your means. It is so shameful to see a person whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has raised, but when you look at the accommodation of the family, you really feel that these people should be getting out at night because during the day it is shameful. When you look at the feeding, they are more like people living in the prison. This one cannot be acceptable. So those are the three levels. The conclusion after understanding these three levels: survival, self-reliance, sustainability. Please, husband and wife, find your level. If you know that your husband can afford to provide for you at survival level, don't hike yourself to a level of sustainability. He has left behind some little amount of money, and mashallah, you are so generous because you want each and every person to know that, you give this one, you give that one. Yet actually your husband is still at the level of survival. That is why among your obligations as a wife, as we shall see, is to take good care of the finances, the resources of your husband. So find your level. If at all you have some surplus, it is okay, you can give out, and so on and so forth. When we are trying to find out where do we belong, I want to remind you, especially a wife, that remember, as you are asking for a certain level of provision, remember that this is the choice that you took. This is the choice that you took. You had the right, you had the freedom to choose someone who is going to provide you according to your expectations. And this is the person that you actually chose. But I also want to emphasize to husbands that, please, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees you. I don't want to be like a section of some Muslims when they are soliciting for contribution. They say, Wallahi, Allah is seeing you. You have 50,000, but you don't want to give. I don't want to go to that extreme. But just as I said, take this responsibility in an enjoyable manner, in a lovely manner, in a sincere manner, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can bless it. Those arrogant men outside there, whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the provisions, and you adamantly ignore to provide, my dear, ebyempisa bwe bigaana, the law comes in. Ebyobuntu bulamu bwe bigaana, when morality fails, the long arm of the law comes out. Here is a situation whereby, if at all, the man really has the provision, but he does not want to provide, what do we do? When you fail to provide, and you have the means to provide, first of all, shame upon you. It's a very big shame. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you the means, and you have a family. You are the very person who went to the guardian of that wife or that woman, and you sought her hand in marriage. Now that this woman is in your hands, you have the provision, you don't want to provide for her. I think the best statement from me is that shame upon you. It's not only shame, but by the way, it is a ground for petition in the Islamic courts of law. When the woman is in the house or in the family, and she does not get the provision, yet actually she knows that you have it, she has a ground to go to the imam, to go to the qadi, and make or file her complaint. Where do we get this from? The hadith is narrated that Hind bint Utbah, there is a lady who was known as bint Utbah, the daughter of Utbah. This lady was a wife of Abu Sufyan. And whenever we talk about the name of Abu Sufyan, that name is associated with wealth, is associated with a lot of property. He's among the Quraysh, is among the people of Makkah who were so rich. So this wife by names of Hind, she goes to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when Abu Sufyan had converted to Islam, and listen carefully to her complaint. She said, Ya Rasulullah, O the Messenger of Allah, Inna Aba Sufyan rajulun shahih. I complain before you that Abu Sufyan you see in the public, who is known of being rich, is a very miser, is a very mean person. He's very stingy. He does not want to provide. The woman says, Inna Aba Sufyan rajulun shahih. He's a very, very stingy person. He's a miser. He's a what? He's mean. He does not want to provide what is sufficient for me and my children. The Prophet listened to her very attentively, and then the woman asked, can I take some of his money, of his wealth, without his notice? Can you imagine that your wife now needs to look left and right and find out where you have left the wallet so that she can snatch something? That is a very big shame. So this woman asked the Prophet ﷺ, can I take out of his wealth without his permission of notice? The Prophet said, yes, you can take out of thee. He said, khudhi ma yakfiki wa waladuki bil ma'ruf. Take what is sufficient for you and for your children, as long as it is reasonable. So wives there shouldn't celebrate that the Prophet ﷺ has allowed you to snatch from the husband's money. He has also limited it. He has also made it clear that it should be what is reasonable. If you are really in need of money to buy lunch or to buy some kind of sauce, this is what you should take out of it when he's not aware. But I also want to emphasize that this is a big shame. We have also had situations, and this situation, it has been actually an area of complaint, that men outside there, they have means. What they do is that they provide their families with beans, with posho, and other food that the family feeds on it regularly until when they are fed up of it. When they come back home, whenever such food is served to them, they say, Alhamdulillah, I am fine. You can only prepare for me a cup of tea. Not knowing that when they pass Gayaza Road, there is a place known as Kumbuzi. He parks there and he orders for 3 kilograms of roasted goat's meat. So he takes it all, or sometimes there are some roads which are known of having this fried Nile perch, emputa. So you find that person parking somewhere and he takes a full kilogram of roasted meat, a full kilogram of roasted Nile perch. When he goes back home, he doesn't want the posh or the beans. Seriously speaking, that is one area of oppression as we shall look at it. So finally, as we go for break, in case really the means cannot allow, you know, there are situations whereby you had the capacity to provide, but situations have changed. When the situation changes and you can't really provide for the wife has any of the 3 options. That is after analyzing that really you cannot afford. The wife has any of the 3 provisions. Number 1, if she has capacity, a lawful one, a modest one, she can actually provide for the family, but on credit. She can provide for the family on credit. It is like she's lending you. Should the situation normalize, should the situation improve to normal, she has a right to come and say, please give me what I had provided in the situation when you didn't have. That is one option. The second option is provide for herself and the family voluntarily without a claim. I hope we could have such generous women. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you some means, you have a certain income, maybe you have something that you inherited from the estate of your brother or your sister or your parents, and it can actually bring some provision at home. You could be such a person with a big heart, and you provide for the family without saying that when the situation normalizes, inshallah, you will have to be paid back. You can provide without any claim. The problem with this, women complain that when they do that and the situation changes, men happen to forget them. That is why they say, no, whatever coin I spend, when time comes, you must pay it back. That is the second provision. The third is, if you really feel that the situation is beyond control, you cannot live without the provision, all roads are closed, you have a right to apply for divorce. You have the right, it is your freedom to say, sorry my dear husband, I can't be in this situation, and therefore I am petitioning the Qadi, I'm petitioning the Islamic court to apply for divorce so that I can get out of this difficult situation. That provision is given to a wife. Why? Because if she happens to be at home, there is no food, there is no provision, you never know. That one can be an entrance point to Shaitan, so that she can start looking for provision from other men, and at the end of the day, she ends up committing adultery. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the means. That is the first segment of the obligation of the husband concerning the financial obligation. When we come back after break and there is provision, inshallah we shall address the non-financial obligation. Jazakumullahu khair.
Barakallahu fikum, jazakumullahu khair. We thank Doctor for the elaborate discussion. We would like also to thank our key stakeholders. We would like to thank Salam TV and Next Media for making it a point to do live broadcasts of our programs. Thank you very much, Salam TV. We thank AL-HIDAAYA Media for also doing the broadcast of these programs. Thank you very much. And also the management and ICT staff of the Islamic University in Uganda. Thank you very much. A certain married lady comes with a complaint. She got married. Husband promised to pay mahar later. Now they are together for 6 years. The lady provides food, rent, school fees, clothes. The husband is waiting for her husband to get better financially.
The husband is waiting?
Yes.
For?
The lady is the one providing food, rent, school fees, clothes, and she's waiting. The woman is waiting for her husband to get better financially so that they can move on in their home development. However, in the 50th year, because now they are 6 years down the road, in the 50th year, she found out that her husband got the money. I don't know how the parameter she used to find it, but this is how the question is. She found out that the husband got the money and married another woman. Paid mahari cash before he could even settle the first wife's what? Mahar. So now the first wife is demanding her mahar. So she seeks Islamic judgment on such a matter. What is doctor's guidance on such a matter? I would like also now to check whether the participants have questions. Hanifa Selbogo, Muima, Aisha Nazwa, Nakato, if at all, Sebagara Muhammad, if at all someone has a question, please you can raise your hand. I can pick that question. If you don't have the question, you can type it. But for the matter of the class, Doctor, from the discussion, happened to have analyzed these key issues. First of all, you emphasized the concept that it is the man who should look after the home, but you put the cap according to how the word you used, the English version of it was in his means. Doctor, who determines the means?
Okay.
Because if you tell me to look after my home, in my means, I may be earning 10 million and I spend 1 million on the home, but then the other 9 million has issues somewhere. Doctor, who determines the means? Is it according to the way I see the means, me the husband, or I should look at parameters? Because these days women tell us that Hakimu Mkwano Goya Funamsara, but he's constructing houses, he's doing this. So doctor, who determines the means, and how do you address the aspect of ladies comparing their husbands, because it's the situation, women decide to compare their husbands with their friends. You see, Hakim is also working there, but for him he can afford this, you cannot afford this. Help us address this from the Islamic perspective. Then I pick also a question here from online, from Brother Subra. I'm inquiring, if I fail completely to compensate my wife, what I had offered it, completely to compensate what my wife had offered when I don't have. Okay, that's the question. Because one of the three things, the options you've left for the women is she can do it on credit. Now, if at all I fail to compensate her because I don't have, and death comes to me actually, let me add on that question, and death comes to me. Should they check in my estate after death and then they compensate her? That was a question. Then there is another one here. Doctor, the issue of giving, you have given us guidance on how to give, and you've actually said that it is better that we look after our families than the mosque. Doctor, I don't know, for you, you may be rich, you may be having enough, but some of us, you can go in a mosque, and the sheikh asks for water.
Yeah.
Doctor, you have 5,000 and at home they need 3,000. But there is a way these sheikhs, there is a way you ask for money in the mosque and you feel like, Wallahi, so you say that, let me give, because you always tell us, you give in such that Allah gives you more. So what I do, I give my 5,000 there in the mosque, such that Allah will give me more, which I'll now go to work and take home. My question here is, Dr. Sente jempadde muzikiti, ne jempadde waka, because at the mosque they need 5,000 for water. At home, they feel like getting good breakfast. Help us understand that aspect. Giving in the mosque, giving at home. Because I'm seeing it, you find a lot of hajis is the one who is looking after the mosque, but he cannot look after. It's because maybe the perception is when you look after the mosque, things will not be the same again. If I invite brother, let me finish these ones which I picked from here. Doctor, there are at times, sometimes I don't know, you are the one who tells us things and then after somewhere as if you have forgotten it, I don't know. You told us contemporary world is now having women who are working. Yeah. Have allowed her to work. Then why don't we share the responsibility? That is a personal question. My wife is working. She's, as I'm also working, but maybe she has got to work in a very big organization. And the children is really, Doctor, why don't we share? Because now the contemporary world, women are working. What is your opinion on that? Should we continue allowing them to do credit? And that credit you have told us is also very scary. And lastly, because this is the last one, there is when you bring in the aspect of credit and divorce. Sometimes credit, let the woman come in and she does it on credit. What if I tell her that when you do, what if I set my parameters? Actually, I think this one will help us answer it with the first one who determines sufficiency. What if I set my parameters? For the lady, she wants to eat meat. Me, I think we should eat cowpeas. For her, she wants meat. I want cowpeas, and then for her she buys the meat because it's on credit. When I get money, I will pay her. Doctor, I don't know how scholars came up with this decision of credit, but because you are one of them, you can help us answer.
The first question was really very emotional and touching, and it has actually been one of the areas of women complaint, that women happen to sacrifice and to be patient with the situation, only to discover later that really the man had the money and even went ahead to marry another woman. How do we advise such a woman? I think we should start by advising men generally. First of all, you know the principle that is laid down in Surah Ar-Rahman, Hal jaza'ul ihsan illa al-ihsan. Really the reward of someone who has done good for you, is this the best way that you could really reward that person? I think goodness should be reciprocated. If a wife had been patient, this shouldn't be the best way of rewarding her. But also at the same time, we might not know the details or the circumstances under which this husband went, where did he get the money from in order to marry the second, and so on and so forth. My advice, especially to the wife who is now the aggrieved party, is not to follow injustice with injustice. You know that prophetic hadith which says, وَأَتْبِعِ السَّيِّئَةَ الْحَسَنَةَ تَمْحُهَا. If the husband has decided to behave as such, the first thing is to draw closer to him and try to find out really the truth about this matter. Because sometimes you actually react emotionally, but if you had given him a chance to explain the circumstance, maybe you would have gotten a better answer. But if it is discovered that really has just been hiding some money, waiting for an appropriate time so that he can go and marry another one, it is also creating another question. If he has been under providing for this family, now how is he going to combine between the two families? Well, knowing that polygamy is a right, polygamy is a privilege. Now, this privilege is also sanctioned or conditioned by the ability to provide. So I'm trying to wonder the kind of a husband, I don't know whether this is the kind of a husband who believes in creating more problems so that he can get better solutions. Because really, if you have been having some challenges of provision with wife number one or just one family, how do you create another burden in such a situation? Nevertheless, my advice to such a wife, one, please try to find out the truth of this matter and not to react emotionally. Number two, if you find out that it is really true that this husband has been hiding some money and under providing you, and then time has come for him now to show his happiness somewhere else, you have the choice. One of the choices, first of all, is to be patient. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا يُوَفَّى الصَّابِرُونَ أَجْرَهُمْ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala we shall give you the best reward. But if you really feel that you are so much aggrieved and you cannot bear with the situation, still you can come closer to the husband and you tell him that this is a sign of a big betrayal and it is your choice either to stay in this marriage or to get out of it, as long as you really know that you have prepared very well life outside the marriage. This is the best that I can say. The second question, who determines the means? And this can be also connected to a situation whereby your means as the husband is to provide for beef, provide for cowpeas, or to provide for beans, yet the woman's appetite is actually in taking beef, in taking chicken, taking fish, among others. The one who determines the means is the one who was given the obligation. That is the husband. It is the husband to determine the means. But while determining the means, the levels of provision, whether you are just providing for survival or for self-reliance or for sustainability, please mind about the following. Number one, balil insanu ala nafsihi basira. You know yourself more. So don't try to hide, don't try to create a situation that you are not okay, yet actually you are okay. So that is the first moral guideline. Evaluate and assess yourself and find out really what is appropriate, what is reasonable for you, what is reasonable for your family. That is number one. Number two, I think there is also a challenge of lack of communication between the two. The wife is saying that you have the means to provide what is more than that. And this also brings in the issue of comparing with the friends. You are doing the same job. Why is it that your friend is providing such and such? He's taking his wife to the outing and the family. He's buying for them this and you cannot. My dear, this kind of comparison is not acceptable in Islam. Because first of all, you don't know what the other family that you are comparing your husband with, you don't know what they are passing through. That is one. Number two, you don't know their order of priorities. Some of the husbands, their priority is actually enjoyment. So you can actually do each and everything to take the family out and so on, yet actually your focus, your emphasis is on development. You are thinking about how can you erect a house. The other one is waiting that come 31st December, I'm taking them outside. So this business of comparing with others, please, you don't know what the other friend is passing through. You don't know the order of his priorities. You don't know the preferences. And this one shouldn't be admitted at any point. But my point here is that what does it cost us to be transparent in provision?
Doctor, I don't know the Uganda wording.
Which one? Okay, I'm not saying that she should come in to know each and everything. But transparency in terms of communication. If you really feel that you have had some challenges, what does it cost you to communicate? You know, sometimes even when you communicate, people don't get convinced. They say that they are lying. But when I communicate to you, also have an obligation to believe in me. I understand that really this is a challenge, but to address it, I am the one who has the obligation to provide, and I am the one who sets the standards. Please be patient with those standards. That is the Islamic provision for that. Except when the wife actually realizes that you are providing below the standard, now you are going into the category of that petition that was made by Hind, that Hindu can take you to the Imam and says that according to my evaluation, he is just under providing. He has the capacity. But in that case, she has the burden to prove that actually you are under providing, but you have the means. The meeting point is about providing what is within the means according to the guidelines that we have seen.
Yes.
Personally, I believe that the woman could only resort to taking out of your wealth without your notice when she's just caught between the hard rock and the what? Is it and the stone?
And the stone.
Yeah. Really, this is the last resort. In other words, we don't want to open this door so open because others shall actually misuse it. Besides that, not all the money I carry home is mine. I think you know that one very well.
That one I know.
Sometimes my boss has just entrusted me with 10 million so that tomorrow early morning I could go and pay off some ground workers. Now for you, the moment you see it, you say, خُذِي مَا يَكْفِيكِ وَوَلَدُكِ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Take what is enough and you take out the 3 million. I think, how do we harmonize between the two? It is to draw closer. You know, really the challenge now in provision is that every person is trying to pull on his or her side. The woman is saying that you are under providing, and for you are saying that the needs before me are too much. So in such a situation, I think the best way is for each and every person to look at his or her innermost self. Balil insanu ala nafsihi basira. You have your judge with you. Let that judge tells you what you are actually supposed to do. That's the best I can say about that. Because at the end of the day, it shall be allegations versus counter allegations, and so on and so forth.
And also the aspect of communicating.
Also the aspect of communication. I think we can answer 2 more questions out of what has been brought on board. In case of failure to compensate, you know, and until when you die. Of course, when you die, it is the woman's right to claim from your estate that that provision she spent when you are not able, it is paid. But it also defeats reasoning. If you genuinely failed to pay in your lifetime, what kind of estate have you left so that it can offset the what? The debt.
The house.
The issue of the house, maybe
Shall do that later.
that one can be looked at it later. But under normal circumstances, if during your lifetime you didn't manage to provide, you know, now which basis can she stand on to say that I'm claiming after death? Of course, that basis can be there when we are distributing the estate, after allotting her share, we can as well add another one in order to mitigate what she spent. But away from all that, if really you have failed to pay, if you have failed to provide for your family, my personal advice is that please be humble. That is the problem. You cannot provide, but at the same time you are so arrogant. You take a lot of pride in you. Be humble and draw closer to her. To the best of my knowledge, our wives really listen and understand. At least some of them do that. So draw closer. If really you have failed, so that you can ask for a waiver, you can ask for a concession, as we have talked about it. I understand it is an issue about pride, but please swallow your pride. As a matter of fact, you have failed, so please accept the situation as it is. I think we have also addressed that one. Maybe the last that we can we can talk about sharing responsibility in case of a working woman. You know, sharing the responsibility in case of a working woman. I think the details of this shall be addressed in our second segment, because we shall. I prefer that we address this in the next segment. Why? When I provide for you, you know, in reciprocity, you have to stay at home. You get it? That's why we said that these are reciprocal roles. And that's why when I was emphasizing that a woman can go out, I was waiting for this time. If I have provided for you sufficiently, now you have an obligation to stay at home. But if you choose to go outside and work, then you shouldn't do that without my permission. And when I grant you permission, that permission can be conditioned or it might not be conditioned. As, for instance, I said that you are going out to work, okay? Isn't it right to say that, okay, how are we going, you know, to look at your income? But if you just gave out an open permission, please, you don't have to include her into sharing responsibility. The woman might say that I am not submitting to conjugal rights because you have not provided, and I'm also saying that first you provide, so first be available, then after being available, then after that I can do what? I can provide. But whatever the situation, you also know the Luganda saying which says gava mukulia. Really, if the woman is not sufficiently provided for, you know, what kind of entertainment and enjoyment do you expect out of her? You know, I think the situation here should be that there is a minimum, you know, but where there is nothing, I don't think that you are right to claim for your rights, for your conjugal rights, in case you have not actually done what? You have not yet provided.
All right, Doctor, I was saying that for the importance of what we are discussing and the time constraint we are having, I think we can conclude with these few questions, such that we shall be topping those on in the next discussion, inshallah.
Sure.
Brother Nsubga is asking, what if...
Let's have one or two.
Let's have only two.
Oh, yeah. Because we even have some others.
Okay.
Yes.
What if, but Doctor, you've not, I think, he says he needs a repeat.
Of what?
Of what if he fails to pay.
Okay.
He needs to know what should be actually done. Okay. The other issue which we were discussing.
That is one.
My husband is Haji. Me, I'm not a Muslim. And my parents are Christian. I've been with this Haji for 3 years. In those 3 years, he has never given me any money, basically to take home. We have 2 kids together. This Christmas, my parents asked some sugar and meat. To respond that for him, he doesn't celebrate the birth of Jesus. Is it fair, Doctor? Yeah,
that is enough.
That's enough.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that one.
Concerning the issue of Brother Nsubga, we just need to summarize it by saying that first, Brother Nsubga and others should understand that it is your obligation to provide for the family. But that you discharge that within your means. But where you really fail, it remains as an obligation on you until you discharge it, you know. And the question was, in case that brother dies and he has not paid for that, we have said that it shall remain as a financial obligation that you have not discharged. And really, it is now up to the wife. If the wife can forego, then it is fine. If she insists that I need to be paid, then we shall look into the estate of the deceased and then offset that kind of credit. That's it that Islamic law can provide for. That's why I say that you should be disciplined, you should be humble, so that maybe this woman can find a way of waiving or of forgiving this. Finally, that question from a non-Muslim lady, you know, some of the issues that I picked is that she's requesting the husband to provide her with something that she can take to her home. That is actually not his primary responsibility. The primary responsibility is provide for you, not to provide for the family. By the way, whether the family or the parents are Muslims or non-Muslims, I also have my personal financial challenges. So I start with you, and that's why I said, if that Haji had reached a level of sustainability that he can provide for you, and then he has some kind of surplus, then he can give you, and when he gives you, it is now your choice to see how can you bring happiness to the minds and the hearts of your what? Of your family. But really it is not the responsibility of that Haji to provide for your family, even giving them the entertainment and the enjoyment during the festive season, during the Christmas. Wallahu subhanahu wa ta'ala a'lam.
Doctor, any conclusion? Because we need to close.
No, the conclusion is that today we have actually addressed the financial obligation, and that is the provision and mahar. And inshallah next time we shall be handling the non-financial obligation of the husband, and after that we shall see, when I do my role as a husband, what do I expect from you as a wife.
We thank Dr. Abdul-Hafiz for that wonderful insight. And I think we have understood that women, it's our obligation to look after our homes, our families. We have gone through the stages in which we can do that, the survival stage, the self-reliance stage, and also the sustainability stage. Key aspects that each one of us has a responsibility, which is divine from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Doctor gave us various verses in Surah Al-Baqarah, among others. So it is our obligation to make sure that we fulfill that responsibility. We thank Salam TV, we thank Next Media, we thank AL-HIDAAYA Media, and also the management of Islamic University in Uganda. Till next Tuesday, inshallah, we shall be live on Zoom. Those of you who would be part of us, we are waiting for you. You can call 0705 666 210. 0705 666 210. The Uganda code is +256 to be part of that online chat room, such that we are part of you. Till next time, inshallah. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Salamun ala al-mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.